The VO Meter, measuring your voiceover progress. Whether you're a veteran voice actor, just starting out, or don't even know how to set a level, we're here to help you avoid the pitfalls along your voiceover path to success. The VO Meter is brought to you by Global Voice Acting Academy, JMC Demos, Studio Bricks, Voice Actor Websites, and Roswell Pro Audio. The VO Meter is produced in part using Source Connect made by source-elements.com. And now your hosts, Paul Stefano and Sean Daly.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 113 of the VO Meter.
Measuring your voiceover progress. We have a pretty exciting show. We have, is it our first? I think it is our first on-camera Hollywood actress as a guest. You'll hear from Lauren Stamile coming up. But before we get to that, it's time for...
VoiceOver Extra brings you the VO Meter reference levels. Seriously, guys? That's the best you could come up with? Hey, it's your show.
So, Sean, what's happening in your VO or regular world?
See, it's been a little bit of a quieter month. Mainly been working on some repeat projects from longtime clients. Finished up that audiobook that I was working on, just waiting on pickups from the publisher for that. And right now I'm kind of just been writing invoices and doing my regular GVA duties and my auditions while I wait for work to pick back up. What about you, Paul?
Just had a colonoscopy yesterday.
I was not prepared for that. I thought we were talking work stuff.
Neither was I. No, I was prepared. Unfortunately, a little public service announcement. The worst part of a colonoscopy is the prep. Because in order for the camera to make its way through the intestines, there has to be nothing blocking it. So you have to take a bunch of materials, medicines, basically just laxatives, to make sure everything exits your body 24 hours before you have the test. So that's always fun. I don't know how much I've shared about this.
That barium solution or whatever so they can see inside better?
No, that's only for imaging. So
okay.
For X-rays or ultrasounds sometimes, I think. This is This is a camera, a flexible tube camera that goes literally up the chute all the way through your intestines. So the camera, the imaging is built into the equipment.
Gotcha. No, I had to do that a long time ago. It was like the worst milkshake you ever had. It was like Pepto-Bismol.
It's gotten better. Oh, the barium? Yeah, the barium does suck. For this, they just give you Miralax. So if anyone who has kids and they've had to help their kids with their movements when they get a little constipated, except... It's frightening when you see the instructions. You have to drink an entire bottle of Miralax.
Jeez. At least it's tasteless, odorless, effective.
I think the normal dosage is like a tablespoon or a teaspoon for a baby. So drinking a whole bottle is a little daunting, and you pour it in a couple of bottles of Gatorade, I guess, so you don't get dehydrated. So that's fun. A little public service announcement for you people. I don't know how much I've shared about this, but I have ulcerative colitis, for about 25 years. So constantly looking for new treatments, and I get a colonoscopy every couple of years. I've had probably a dozen over the last 25 years, so that's fun. But I highly recommend getting one if you're over, I think the recommendation is now over 40. It used to be when you were really over 50 because of colon cancer, but now they recommend even 40 years old, and it's really not that bad. I joke, but especially after a dozen, it's almost like a routine for me. So if you are in that age group and you've are hesitant to get a colonoscopy, please don't be. It's really not that bad at all. Like I said, I had it yesterday. I was eating dinner, and I'm back up and doing all my activities this morning with no side effects whatsoever. So there you go. On the work side, I started the lacrosse season for announcing, which has been pretty fun. I did the home opener for the Naval Academy women's and men's teams last week. And cool thing happened to me on Friday. The women's team was playing St. Joseph's University, which is based in Philadelphia, and has several members of the team that are from my high school, including two sisters that are daughters of a friend of mine from high school. He was really my brother's friend because he's a few years younger, but his older sister went to school with me at the same year, so I know the family pretty well. And it was the second time I got to announce my hometown over the loudspeaker. So when you're doing an announcing, and you'll learn this next week when I have my GVAA webinar on live announcing, which, by the way, is February 20th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Please join me for that. But anyway, you'll learn this when you announce a player for a team. You do usually their hometown, their year in school, and their position and their number and name. So for my hometown is a little town called Orland, Oreland, and it's just outside Philadelphia. And both these girls went to my high school. So they were both starters, and twice I got to say, from Orland, Pennsylvania, on attack, number 13. Blah, blah, blah. I won't say their name in case they don't want to have it publicized. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was awesome. I got to do it last year, too, with the same school and one of the same sisters, because one is a freshman, so she just started. But the one who's a senior, last year they came to Towson University, where I was also announcing and got to announce them over a loudspeaker. So it doesn't happen very often where I get to say my hometown. That was kind of fun.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited about your upcoming webinar and workshop for sure. And we've gotten a lot of requests for sports announced and some interesting questions too. One person even asked, like, is this exclusively for males? I'm like, no.
Whoa. Oh, okay.
Like we have, if you don't mind, it's such a random question. Can you, we've interviewed like female sports announcers on the podcast. So
Yeah.
it's just like, I really don't want people to think that it's still male dominated.
I mean, it is male dominated, unfortunately. It's good for me right now, but as far as society in general, it is very male dominated. And you and I have made a point of inviting people we know are not old white males, because we know that's important. So, having Joey Shalio on, who does the Mystics in DC, and having Adrian Robertson on, who does the Orioles, that's important. So, yeah, there are women, and there's more and more entering, but it is still very male-dominated. So that's the live announcing. Lacrosse season in full swing. Softball and baseball coming shortly as it gets a little bit warmer here on the East Coast. And then on the audiobook front, something interesting that just happened this week. I landed and produced my first synthetically narrated audiobook on ACX. So I'm not sure if you're even aware of this, Sean, but a couple of months ago, they launched this beta program. It's been about a year since they started allowing people to upload synthetic voice books, and it's clearly noted as done by a synthetic voice. But just in the last couple of months, they launched this beta for narrators and producers who are on ACX to create their own synthetic voice. So I took advantage of it, never wanted to shy away from trying something new. I created the voice. It was very much like the one I did for Vocal ID years ago and for Sounded in the UK. I recorded a couple of hours of text that they sent me. They created the voice, sent it back to me to listen to. Still not perfect, but I don't think it was going to get any better, so I approved it. And then you can use it on ACX to audition for books that have that checked off as an option. So there's a search item you can check off, just like for budget or genre or length of the book. You can also select whether you're, as an author, or a publisher, when you're uploading your book, you can select, will I accept synthetic voices, yes or no? And then your book can either be only accepting synthetic voices, only live narration, or it can accept either or. So then when I'm as a producer or a narrator, I go to ACX just like I would look for a job, or a book to narrate myself. I can also click off the Show Me Voice Replica accepting projects and then apply with that. So the process was pretty cool. All I had to do was click this button that said Generate Audition. 30 seconds later, it has a 3-minute to 5-minute audition, however long the text was. I can listen to it, and if I like it, hit submit. And then there's a note that defaults in the message to the rights holder that says, this voice was created using Paul Stefano's synthetic voice, so they know, in case there was any questions about it. So then this author accepted it, and then to produce the book was almost as easy. I clicked the same button, Generate. It creates the entire book. This one's only 3 hours, so it didn't take that long. Maybe it takes longer for a 25, 30-hour book. But it was done in like 5 minutes. And then it pulls up a thing similar to Descript. It has a visual representation of the book with any words that need to be changed, or really any word you can change. So you go into this document on their website, and again, it looks kind of like what I'm familiar with from Descript. You can select the text and change the way it's pronounced. You can change the pitch. You can change the pronunciation within reason. You have to kind of know how to manipulate it. So this book is about, it's a diet book, which in my opinion is perfect for AI, because they're not very popular for live narration, and I wouldn't want to do it as a live narrated project. But for this, it works pretty well. It's a book about a special diet for acid reflux or GERD. So when I clicked into the book and listened to some of the files, GERD was capitalized, GERD, and the voice was saying, or my synthetic voice was saying, GERD. So I had to go in and try and figure out a way to tell the algorithm that needs to be GERD. So the way I did it was I typed it out as GIRD, like gird your loins.
Oh, interesting.
And then you just click replace all, just like in Microsoft Word, where you do a find and replace, and you can either replace one or replace all of them. So I hit replace all, and then throughout the book, wherever it said GERD, now it says GERD.
Interesting. This kind of seems like the evolution of some of the texts we've looked at over the years, like positron and Hindenburg, but from like more narration input than, say, like proof listening, for example. That's really cool.
So I went through the whole book, and those were the only couple of issues I found. So I won't lie and say I listened to the whole thing, because with a synthetic voice that I did almost no work for, I feel like it's on the responsibility of the rights holder. Maybe those business practices will be more highlighted and changed in the future. But in this case, I set it off after just looking through any proper names or acronyms that might have been messed up, like GERD. And then the author approved it the same day. So the entire process took like an hour and a half, and the book is out, or is being reviewed by ACX, and should be out like within the next week. So if you want to go listen, what's it called again? Let me go back to my projects. It's called Acid Reflux Diet Cookbook, Easy to Make Recipes for Heartburn Sufferers, by Dr. Lucy Medford, narrated by Paul Stefano's synthetic voice, is what it says on the credits.
Man, that's crazy. What times we live in. And we actually had an interview recently that you guys will hear in a couple episodes, but we were talking about there are some gigs that, like, I think are fine for AI to do. Like, and they might not be the best use of a narrator's time, or they might not be, they could be incredibly dry or boring to, like, they don't need a performance so much as a delivery, if that makes sense. And I think, like, when it comes to marketing standpoint, I'm a big fan of just being aware of all the potential avenues for one's business and trying to take advantage of those, like whether that's like direct marketing, being on online casting, having an agent, or in this case, having a voice clone. So I think it's just another potential income stream for the modern voice talent.
Yeah, in this case, I think it's a good fit. It's a diet book that most professional narrators will tell you they wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole because they just don't sell. Oh, it's royalty share, too. So another reason no one would want to do it as a narrator for the most part. But for AI, it makes perfect sense.
I think that's a great application, and I'm interested to hear like how the sales for it go.
Yeah, I'll let you know. So that's it for me from a current events standpoint, except for to promote one more time. Next week, GVAA webinar on live sports announcing. It's called Game On. It's at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, February 20th. That's a Thursday, I believe. Yep, Thursday, February 20th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Please join me there.
All right, very cool. And if you can't make it live, you can always get the recording. Well, that wraps up our VO meter reference levels. Paul and I actually didn't buy any new gear this month for once, so we're going to skip that section and go straight to the interview after these messages.
How many times has this happened to you? You're listening to the radio when this commercial comes on, not unlike this one, and this guy starts talking, not unlike myself.
Or maybe it's a woman that starts talking, not unlike myself, and you think to yourself, geez, I could do that.
Well, mister, well, missy, you just got one step closer to realizing your dream as a voiceover artist, because now there's Global Voice Acting Academy. All the tools and straight-from-the-hip, honest information you need to get on a fast track to doing this commercial yourself.
Well, not this one exactly.
Classes, private coaching, webinars, home studio setup, marketing and branding help, members-only benefits like workouts, rate and negotiation advice, practice scripts, and more. All without the kind of hype you're listening to right now. Go ahead, take our jobs from us. We dare you.
Speak for yourself, buddy. I like what I do.
And you will too when you're learning your craft at Global Voice Acting Academy. Find us at globalvoiceacademy.com.
Because you like to have fun.
Hey everyone, Studio Bricks designs and creates the highest performing portable sound isolation booths. Our professionally perfected acoustics enhances your performance and takes your recordings to their maximum quality from your home studio. Forget about managing noise conflicts with your neighbors and family. Pursue your passion for voiceover on your own time and on your own terms.
Walgreens, because it's flu season, and you live in a place with doorknobs and handrails and, people.
We tried booking a vacation rental on one of those other websites. They don't always tell you everything.
The stars take it to the red carpet.
We are back live from the red carpet.
California leads the way for change in America, and so does Kamala Harris.
Rated M for mature. Claire Redfield.
And who exactly are you?
So, yeah, what hashtag should I use to describe a grown man in a tuxedo wrestling a goat?
And prior to 1933, many of them belonged to a variety of political parties that were now outlawed in Germany.
This is the story of how Q got curly. Quinn was crazy about curls. Curly fries, curly straws, curly-haired dogs.
Hey, Jay Michael here. Thanks for listening to the VO Meter podcast. It's one of my favorites. If you're looking for a great demo like the ones you just heard, check out jmcdemos.com for more information.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the interview portion of this episode of the VO Meter. We're really excited for this upcoming guest. I've been hoping she'd be on the podcast for quite a while, and she finally said yes. So let's get right to the bio. Born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Lauren Stamile is the middle of 5 children. After earning a theater degree from Northwestern University, she moved to New York City, where she performed off-Broadway and as an understudy on Broadway in advance of heading west to Los Angeles, where she has made a career in television, film, and commercials. Stamile most recently played a DC villain and love interest opposite Misha Collins in the CW's Gotham Knights. She has recurred in the series regular opposite a succession of strong leads on many popular series: Patrick Dempsey's love interest, Nurse Rose on Grey's Anatomy, a hungry political climber with her eyes on Jesse Spencer on Chicago Fire, an intrepid reporter investigating Tony Goldwyn on Scandal, a tightly wound doctor caught in the middle of a gang war with Jason O'Mara on Complications, a CIA pit bull directing Jeffrey Donovan on Burn Notice, a wry professor dating Joel McHale on Community, and a staunch vegan hooking up with Bradley Cooper in Kitchen Confidential. In addition to her role opposite John Cho, Jason George, Eddie K. Thomas, and Sean McGuire on the half-hour comedy series Off Center, Stamile assumed the sultry southern lead with Jerry O'Connell in the TV adaptation of Nora Roberts' bestseller Midnight Bayou, and starred as television's favorite angel Kate Jackson in NBC's Behind the Camera, The Unauthorized Story of Charlie's Angels, and to this day is asked to do her impersonation. Guest roles include the likes of SWAT, American Horror Story, The Rookie, 911, Veronica Mars, NCIS, Workaholics, Criminal Minds, The Mentalist, Scrubs, Heroes, Boston Legal, Numbers, CSI, CSI Miami, CSI New York, The West Wing, Cold Case, Crossing Jordan, and Without a Trace, among others. She is happily married with 2 amazing children and splits her time between coasts. So welcome to the show, Lauren.
Hi, thank you for having me here. So glad to be here.
So glad to have you. Man, I'm a little starstruck. But anyways, you have an incredibly impressive resume, Lauren. How did you get started in this business to begin with?
Well, as mentioned in the bio there, I am the middle of 5 children. And I think that by nature and nurture, my observational skills became very keen. I think I was always trying to watch what everybody else was doing on either side of my birth order so I could avoid getting in trouble and hopefully get some praise. And I think I kind of liked to be quiet. I was much more comfortable, still am, much more comfortable asking questions than I am giving answers. And I think when my family was really into the arts, music and theater and television and movies. Both of my parents went into the medical field, but originally they had toyed with the idea of being a part of the entertainment industry. And so they were very super supportive of my interests in performing. But I came by it not because I loved to be in front of people. It was actually the opposite. I was quiet and shy. And when I was in high school, I think it was my freshman year, I got this tiny little part in the play. And my parents said when they watched it, it was like watching their wallflower bloom. So I think that acting became this great way of pairing my love for kind of observing and also a way to express myself that felt less scary than doing it in real life because, there's a bit of a mask. And so my parents were, as I said, really supportive, but they said, in order to do it, I had to go to college and study first. So I did that, and then I majored in theater, and then I kind of went from there.
Amazing. I can definitely relate to the family thing because I'm the youngest of 3 boys. So it's like, not only do you fight for attention, but you want to make sure it's the right type. So.
Absolutely. And also, I think too, being in the middle, you can really understand everybody's perspective. Like, oh, well, that makes sense if you were her, and that makes sense. And like, so I think that has helped too, because, in order to, I think, accurately portray a character, you can't be judging the character. You have, we all feel really justified in every decision we make in life, even if to others it's a terrible decision. And so I think that helped as well.
I was going to say, you seem like you have a strong sense of empathy.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope I do. I think it's important to have.
For an actor, I think so.
Yeah, I would agree. And I totally relate to the using the profession as a mask. I did the same thing. I was incredibly shy as a kid as well.
Really?
I remember my mom would say that I wouldn't even go ask the cashier at the grocery store if I could buy a pack of gum. I would make my little brother go do it, who's 3 years younger than me.
Yes.
I was terrified of people, and I did the same thing except for behind the microphone. But the first thing I did in high school to get over that was the morning news and announcements. So I would do the lunch menu for the day, and we had actually a full service closed circuit television station for the high school. So that was really lucky. So I'd do the announcements about the lunch menu and who won the field hockey game the day before, and then I became the mascot in college, all purposefully because I wanted to get myself out of my shell, and I knew those things would help. But I still kind of use it as a mask. If I had my druthers, I would sit at home all day eating popcorn and watching movies.
No, I mean, absolutely. I one of the most terrifying things growing up for me was entering the cafeteria. Like, because for where I was, especially or in my middle school and high school, there were these steps that you had to kind of like, you got your drink or whatever, and then you walk down into the cafeteria. And I was like, oh my God.
It's like making an entrance every time.
Yeah. I was like, this is awful. And yeah, I'm the same as you. Like, I know it, I knew it's good for me, but I don't know. It's scary. Like, even when the phone rings, I'm like, oh my God. Like, what? It's just terrifying. Like, people are going to be listeling, and this is scary. This is really scary, actually.
Oh, the podcast? Well, I apologize for putting you through that.
No, but it's great. It's great.
Well, speaking of challenges, aside from shyness in general, what were your greatest challenges once you left Northwestern and tried to actually look for a job?
The challenges have changed. I mean, some of them, the challenges then are still challenges now. But at first, I think navigating these giant cities, coming from Tulsa, Oklahoma, was really hard, even just geographically speaking. I just didn't know where the heck I was or how it worked or, what was going on. That was really hard. I was really lucky when I got out of college that we had done a showcase in my last year. So I got an agent that way. And that was super lucky. So they could at least kind of tell me, get me auditions and tell me what I was doing wrong. But I was doing that while kind of cobbling together a series of very strange jobs to make money. And then, trying to keep those employers happy while I'm constantly asking to get out of work to go on an audition. That was all difficult. Finding community was difficult. Trying to figure out how to tweak my performances to suit the medium I was auditioning or working in. So television versus film versus commercials versus theater, voiceover. And even within a certain medium like television, is it a multi-camera show? Is it a single camera show? What genre is it? That was very on-the-job training. I was a theater major, and at the time, my college had a radio, TV, film department, but the two departments did not intermingle very much. And so I was getting ready to be on a stage every time I went into an audition, and some of them were like, oh my God, you're like blowing us out of the room. You just be quiet and be smaller. And that was difficult. And I think one of the things that continues to be difficult is the rejection. I mean, it is, life as an artist of any kind is also a lifetime, one of your lifetime companions is rejection. And I think that as an actor, trying to kind of balance how to, from a business perspective, have the thick skin and kind of necessary distance of someone selling and marketing a product, which just happens to be you, and not taking it personally when you're rejected and kind of just moving on to the next buyer, while trying to, from an artistic perspective, keep yourself open and vulnerable and malleable, that poses a lot of conflict still.
Yeah, I think that kills a lot of actors.
I think so.
I was lucky in that I came to this late, and one of my first jobs was selling insurance and investment products. I was a financial advisor over the phone. And I was just talking to my brother about this the other day. Yeah. When I first started at the company, I could not leave the office till I made 100 calls a day, whether they were answered or not. So I would get hung up on 75, 80 times in a day, and people or cursing at me. They would say, "Don't ever effing call me here again." So I got used to rejection really quickly. So when I started selling myself, like you were saying, as an actor, it was kind of easy because I liked what I was doing, and I was not getting rejected nearly as much as I was as an insurance agent.
Right. You're like, I can do this 100 times a day. I'm going to keep coming back. Yeah, that is
iron skin. But I love sort of the positive personification you had for rejection, calling it a companion. Like, I mean, it's just someone that you share the journey with. You don't have to hate or be afraid of it. It's just part of it.
I absolutely agree. I think I've done that with rejection and also with being nervous. I taught acting for a long time, and one of the things I would tell the other actors was, okay, if you were driving, I don't know, if you're driving from LA to San Diego and you really have to go to the bathroom, but there's nowhere to stop and the traffic, like you just can't stop, you're probably going to make it to the bathroom. You're just going to make it, and you feel it and it's uncomfortable. I think nervous, being anxiety before auditions or while working, it's probably going to be constant, but you're not going to die. You'll most likely be okay. That just learn to say, okay, you're here, or okay, I got another no. All right, moving on. I think if you don't develop some sort of, Jedi mind trick of trying to make rejection and anxiety and all of those things that come along with an artistic career, you won't make it, because it is part of it. It's for the most famous person on earth. They still have that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you touched on it a little bit when some of the considerations you make when working across mediums like on camera and film and stage. So, this is a voiceover podcast, and you've done some types of voiceover. What types have you done, and did you enjoy it?
I've not done a whole lot. I think I booked the first or second voiceover audition I went out for, which was a Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial.
Nice.
And that was the last voiceover job that I booked.
One in a million.
So not great. I was like, oh, this is so easy, until I was like, this is the hardest thing that's ever happened to me. And so many people I know do it so much better than me. I stopped auditioning for voiceovers and Paul, I think we've talked about this, when the balance just kind of tipped and the time that I spent trying to get a job was so gargantuan in relation to the actual return I was getting. And like we said, like, I am no stranger to like tons of rejection, but it was on such a big scale. And my children were really small at the time, and I was like, oh, this doesn't make sense. And so I kind of was like, I'm going to ride the horse in the direction it's going. I seem to get much more work, but still tons of time where there's no work, doing stuff on camera. So I'm going to keep going that way, which makes me very sad, because I think voiceover would be the best job ever. And I know so many people, like I said, that do it so well. And I think I probably would require additional training to kind of understand how to properly use my voice in this medium, because it is very different.
That is the right attitude. And I think a lot of people get themselves in trouble, me included, because they think their past experience means they don't need to have additional training. I thought because I was on the radio, I could do this and right away. And I had a rude awakening the first couple of years, really. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think too, like in camera, especially, you have multiple tools at your disposal. You've got your body and your face and your body's position in space and other actors and movement and the quality and pace of your movement or stillness. And then you have wardrobe and hair and makeup and sets and lighting, all these things that on camera, to me, there seems like after your initial preparation, you really have to have, or I really have to have, a real feeling of surrendering, because it's such a massively collaborative process right in front of you. So I think if you're concentrating too much on your voice, as because it's one of 100 different things, then that can actually get in your way. You can do a lot with a glance on camera, and that you obviously can't do when you're, you're on voiceover. And so it was a very humbling to me just how difficult it is to do voiceover in a completely different way than on camera work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we're talking mostly about traditional voiceover roles like commercials or narration. But you have done some looping in ADR, right, as part of your on-camera work?
Yes, I have. I'm
So
actually.
how does that work? And because we haven't talked about it a lot, and Sean and I haven't done a lot of it. So can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Oh gosh, it's so interesting. I'm surprised I haven't done it more because it's amazing how great the sound departments are. Because a lot of times, you'll be filming and it's like there's a windstorm outside, and you're like, oh, wow, we're going to do ADR for this scene, and you don't. But basically, you go into a sound booth, and there is big screen showing you the scene that you're looping for, and sometimes you're adding dialogue or sounds that was never there, and so you're not matching anything on your face. And then sometimes you're redoing dialogue that was there, but the quality wasn't up to par. And so you need to match the performance, and you need to match your mouth saying the words. So they let you watch the scene a few times to kind of figure out, what was happening tonally, and, what was your voice doing that day. And then the sound engineer lines up a series of 3 beeps. It's like beep, beep, beep. And then on the 4th beat, there is no beat, but where the 4th beat would be, that's when you start talking. And the surest way that I can guarantee I'm going to screw it up is if I try to match my mouth. So you have to surrender and just almost not look and like match that 4th beat and then say your lines. And then you do it several times. And sometimes the director is listening in or the director's there. And sometimes the director's not there, and you just do it until they have a few choices, and then that's it.
Now, are there some shows where it's entirely looped, like ahead of time, you don't actually have to talk on set?
I've never done anything like that. No.
Okay.
So I've only had to loop for, I don't know, maybe a few lines at a time, a line or two, a word or sounds or things like that. No, I've never had to loop like an extensive portion of anything.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know how the sound setup is on an outdoor set, but I'm thinking things like nature shows that are all outdoors, or fantasy adventures like Lord of the Rings, where it's entirely done outside. You think that's looped completely?
No, I don't. I think that they, actors will wear a mic. There's all these ways that they hide the mics where they put them. They strap them to different parts of your body. And sometimes they'll also have, the sound departments there with their boom and the incredible positions they need to get in to make sure they're not on camera. It's really incredible. It's kind of like, do you guys do room tone?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's one thing that on camera would have in common. I love that because, it might be 3 a.m. and you're in the middle of the forest and you're dressed like a pirate and there's 150 people and they're like, okay, we're going to call for room tone. And like everybody's quiet for 60 seconds and you kind of look around and you're like, what are we doing?
We're playing pretend in the woods.
It is. Because you've got all these departments, you've got the booms, and like you're doing a scene and someone is crying and the boom operator's on the floor. Like it's just, there's all these people everywhere. And I think it's such a cool process, like having so many people come together in the service of make-believe. Yeah. So anyway.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I've only done like ADR workshops and stuff, but I know it's just such a unique, very restrictive form of performance, like highly technical. Like you said, you have to there's such a level of mental acuity going on because like one eye's looking at the script, one eye's looking at the video, like you're trying to match the timing. It's nuts.
Absolutely. And I think too, especially if you're matching like, okay, this was the scene when the tornado was coming for you and you're like alone in a sound booth and they're like, okay, so make noises like, you're running from the tornado or what. You're just like, oh, right. I have to, remember what this is. But I even if you were doing a scene like that on camera, there really wouldn't be a real tornado. So I think a lot of it
thank goodness.
A lot of it is just make believe. You're just like, I don't know. It feels like half the time when I get to do my job, I feel like I'm 8 years old and I'm just playing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I appreciate the explanation though, because my entire frame of reference for looping is that clip of Hugh Jackman doing his Wolverine run through the woods.
A bit niche there, Paul.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the sort of the considerations you make across acting across different mediums, but what about genres? Because, I mean, looking at your resume, you have a huge variance between comedic and dramatic and dramedy, if you will. So do you have a different acting process when preparing for a comedic versus a dramatic role? And like, what about shows like Grey's Anatomy that are a little bit of both?
I think yes and no. I mean, I think that, and that's all I'm going to say. No, just kidding.
Concise.
Very. I think that being aware of the genre is very important. To know, like, what is this world that I'm in? You know, one thing in college that I thought was really, really helpful is whenever we would be working on a project with my acting teacher, who became a great mentor to me, before we were allowed to pick up a script, she would make us go research what the heck was going on in the world at the time. Like, what was the music people were listening to? What were people wearing? Politically, what was happening? What was this? What was that? What was this? So that by what dance was, you know, in vogue at the time, like whatever it was, so that by the time we picked up the script, we already were immersed in the feeling of whatever world that is. I think that's important with genre too. If you're doing a multi-camera comedy, like a Friends, something like that, which has several cameras and you're performing in front of a live audience, which is theatrical, but it's also on camera, so it's contained as well. If you get news that you lost your job, your reaction is going to be different than if you are doing a Martin Scorsese film and you lost your job. So I think understanding the world is very important. Preparing for my character, though, I think would be the same. Who is this? What do they do? Where are they from? How old are they? What's important to them? Who's in the room with them in this scene? Where are they on the way to? All that kind of stuff, I think, is the same. But within what world am I? A lot of times in comedy, the stakes are really, really high, which can make it funny that people are reacting in an enormous way to something that in real life they might not react that big to. And so I think that the preparation is the same, but it's within the context that is different, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense, yeah. We do the same thing in voiceover.
Right, well, depending on the genre of book you're reading, or like if you're doing a voiceover, an audiobook, right? I mean, so how would you guys approach that differently? Should I not be asking?
You never turned it around on us, Paul.
I was actually going to quote Sean, because I've heard him teach this before, but go ahead, Sean.
A lot of the similar things that you were mentioning, like at least with comedy, things do tend to be exaggerated. And like, for example, if somebody's frustrated and like, oh my God, I can't find my keys, like in a dramatic moment, like you might see the tension on their face, you might see the sweat on their brow, this on camera and stuff like that. But in a cartoon, like their lid might literally explode off their head, you know? And while that obviously is absurd and unnatural, we can relate, we can sympathize to the internal conflict of like, God, I need to get to work. I need to get the kids. All this is going wrong. Volcano head, you know? So,
absolutely. Yeah. And it's not that you're not making it big. It is big. In that moment, it's really big. You know, all these things I think you're right. It's more of you're feeling it internally versus externally. You know, the lid's open a little bit.
The emotion is truthful if the circumstance isn't, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
And I was going to say, if you're auditioning for a show, you better have, unless it's brand new, you better have watched the show or at least something in that genre so you understand what's going on. Like you can't do an audition for a Looney Tunes character if you've never watched a Looney Tunes cartoon. It just wouldn't work. So you have to know your genre.
Absolutely. I mean, and knowing the genre and knowing like who's involved in this? What is this director? What is this writer? What have they done before? You know, before this, or the other actors, or just kind of like, you know, I try to approach really any audition or any job opportunity, you know, like a scientist. You know, I'm going to gather as much information as I possibly can. And then that way that when I actually get to the set or to the job, I can feel comfortable kind of letting it go a little bit because I know I've done as much homework as I possibly can to prepare, and then you do have to let it go, and you just have to pay attention to the other people that you're acting with, and make it about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same, whatever genre you're in, for sure. There was something on your last podcast, Sean, you said that I thought was really interesting. And I was driving and I was like, oh my God, I can't write that. I was telling my daughter, because I was like, I can't write it down, but I thought it was so interesting. You said something about, I think it was the longer the script, the slower the read?
Oh, yeah.
Something like, it's counterintuitive, but the more dense copy is, and that doesn't mean you have to read it in slow motion, but you have to understand, and I hear it all the time working with newer talent, but it's like, it could be the pressure of the nerves or being in like a performance scenario and people just rush through this, but it's like, you need to go at a pace that you're not just processing the information. Like you're able to convey detail and story and context. And if we go too quickly, whether this is a documentary narration or an audio book or even like an e-learning training, people can't understand or appreciate what you're talking about. So again, while there doesn't have to be a monotonous tempo or anything like that, you can speed up at certain parts and vary your pacing and things like that. You never want to outpace the attention and interest of the listener.
That I thought was so interesting because, and I think that might be, it's a way that could possibly differ a little bit on camera because someone else is filling in those other parts for you. And what I mean is, so if you are in a half-hour television show, the show's not really 30 minutes. It's 20 something because of all the commercials and, the credits and all that kind of stuff. Same with an hour. It's an hour show is 40 something minutes because of all that. So that if there is a big chunk of dialogue and your character's talking for a page and a half and it's just you're thinking, oh my God, we only have a certain amount of time. I need to get through this. Like, for example, you guys mentioned Grey's Anatomy. On Grey's Anatomy, people talk very fast. I remember when I first went on for that audition, they were like, they talk fast. You got to move it along. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm already nervous. What does that mean? And it was just the style of that particular show. So if your character had a lot to say, they were probably talking fast. Like right now, if my dialogue was on a screen or on a page, there'd be a lot of words. And I am talking fast because I'm like, am I boring? Am I making any sense? Lauren, wrap it up. Please go. Like, keep going. On camera too, you also have the picture. You have and I guess if you're narrating, like you said, if you're narrating something that does have a picture, you have that as well. But they're going back and forth to, the other actors look and this and this and that, or maybe you're communicating more by what you're doing in between the lines than on the line. So I think sometimes in television, especially, not as much film, I am more aware of like, keep the pace up, like keep it going. But when you said that about voiceover, I thought, God, that's really interesting. As you said, it's not necessarily be slow, it's fill it in. You have to fill in the moments and take the audience for a ride.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning with on camera, sort of the upbeat tempo of just like, especially with witty shows, right?
Sure.
Like Grey's and stuff like that. It's very true of animation because again, 22-minute episodes, you're filling it with a lot of jokes. And again, speed is important, but I feel like the way that we sort of compensate with that is the clarity of the performance choices that we make. So like people will get like, oh man, these characters are manic and all over the place, but the punchlines still land and people still laugh.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is hard to find the balance between keeping pace up and just rushing and not, just to get the words out, because that is not going to give you the result you want. God, it's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's when a good director and good writing will save you.
Absolutely.
A great example, and I'm saying this with a full intention of just getting out my love for the Eagles. In the big game last night,
yes,
where my Philadelphia Eagles won, there was a great commercial, at least my favorite, was with Harrison Ford. It was a Jeep commercial. And that guy just knows his niche and his strengths, and he was slowly moving along this story. And I don't think they said the word Jeep until the last, 5 seconds. It was just him telling a story, and it ended up being a Jeep commercial at the end. But it was just Harrison Ford in his glory doing his thing.
And you were with him the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. He's taking you along for the ride. I mean, it's for someone like him too. It looks so effortless, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
and it's just not.
Oh, I know. He's just good.
He's amazing. Yeah.
So shifting gears a bit, after the pandemic, which I hate still bringing up, but it's a thing, the trend toward home or self-recording in VO just skyrocketed. Did the same thing happen for on-camera, and what challenges does that entail doing auditions from home?
It absolutely did. I mean, the self-taping was already starting to happen before the pandemic. I still think the majority of auditions were in person, but there were quite a few self-tapes. Now I think the first round of every audition on camera, I think, is self-taping. And I have booked off of single self-tapes, so I think sometimes that's the audition and you can get the job. Sometimes I think they want to see a bunch of people, and then if they're really interested, or they might have a live Zoom audition, or they might want you to come in, to have a chemistry read with the other actors, or just kind of get your overall vibe in person. But I do think the self-tape for the initial round, rather, I think is here to stay. I think it's more convenient and efficient for casting and directors and for actors, and it allows people to be more flexible with when they schedule, their taping. Mm-hmm. I don't think that is going to change. I mean, the things I like about it, in an audition, you have very short amount of time to kind of show them what you've got, right? And we don't have a ton of control. And so I do like the control of, all right, I'm in a place, I'm comfortable, I can look at this, I can do it, and then look at it and do it and look at it, and then tweak depending on, because I'm trying to figure out what I want to offer them, that I love. I don't love not getting direction, because sometimes I feel like, I'm filming with my husband and it's, 11:30 at night, and we do this and then it goes into the void. And I'm like, did anyone ever watch it?
Right.
Probably.
We should mention though, your husband's a producer, so you have a little bit of a leg up on some people, right?
Yeah, he's not. He's not. I mean, he did work he majored in radio, TV, film, and he was writing, also a double major with writing, but he hasn't been kind of working in the entertainment industry in that way for a long time.
Okay.
So he's great though. I mean, he's fantastic. I love doing that with him. And he has to, do the sound and then the lighting, and then we got to edit, and then we have to transfer and it's that part of it at first was a nightmare, just trying to figure that out during the pandemic, because I think self-tapes before the pandemic, I would go to someone who had a setup and knew what they were doing. Figuring that out on our own was really hard. But now, we have it down. So that part I like. I miss getting direction. I miss going into the rooms. I mean, I think that part is exciting, but that part is also scary.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know if it will ever go back to what it was. I don't think so. This might be our new normal.
It certainly is for VO. It's
for you guys, yeah. And what do you prefer?
Well, I definitely prefer doing it from home for some of the same reasons, but also monetarily. I spent $1 million setting up this home studio in my house, so I like to use it whenever possible.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely.
I've only honestly really had one session where I had to go in person, and that was for a Netflix show, because they wanted me to come to New York. And the funny thing was, it was during the pandemic. I had some pictures of going into New York City and being at Times Square, where there was 4 people at Times Square, like one on each corner. That was it. And I told the producer, I have a pretty good home studio. I could send you some samples. And they said, no, you have to come into New York. So I did it. And then a week later, they said, we have some pickups. Can you come back? And it was in that time where, as the listeners know, I live in Maryland. Maryland was on the no entry list for New York after I had been there. So I had like this small window where I went there. Then we were shut off from New York City. So I said, I can't. They won't let me in. They won't let me over the state lines. And they said, well, do it from home and we'll see how it sounds. So I did it. And they said, oh, that's great. We should have just done it from home to begin with. And I said, I told you.
Yes, that's what I was saying. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic though. But you have a studio kind of setup that's always set up.
Yeah. I have a soundproof booth done by Studio Bricks, one of our sponsors. And it's in one of the rooms in the house, and it just sits there, and I just pop in here whenever I need to record something, like right now, pop back out and go take out the dog or eat lunch or whatever I have to do. So I don't think that's going anywhere. It was already ramping up before the
Absolutely.
pandemic, and I don't think anyone's going back to quote unquote normal at this point.
No, I don't think so. We seem to be in an ever evolving state of abnormal.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so much change.
It's funny though, you mentioned how you had sort of given up on voiceover because there was diminishing returns. I feel the same way about self-tapes. I used to get them a lot from my agent or several agents, and at one point I was filming this commercial with my daughter trying to record, and I said, this is terrible. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm done. I just can't do it anymore. So I told my agent, don't send me anymore. It doesn't make any sense.
That was it. Going back to your previous question about some of the challenges that I had at first getting into this industry, I had mentioned that rejection is a challenge I had then, which I still have now, but probably less so because my life is so much busier outside my career than it was at 23. I think that now, I guess I've been doing this, 27 years professionally, and traveling and unpredictability is hard. I think it used to be more exciting when I was younger, whereas now, you need to get on a plane tomorrow and you're going to be gone for a month is much harder than it was. I think getting older in an industry that lends itself towards being youth driven, and also at a time when it really has contracted. I mean, everybody feels that. That is real. That there seems to be less. And then also, I think the social media of it all is challenging for me. I got on social media very late, and it was to promote a job. And then I did very little after that with it. I just was like, oh, this is so unnatural to me. And so I got off for over 3 years. And I just recently got back on to like Instagram. And I think it's such a powerful tool, and I think it can be, do so many great things. I don't think that I'm very good at it, and I think that I'm very self-critical. And so it's kind of like with the voiceover auditions. If it takes me 5 hours to do one post, and then I post it, and then exactly, and then I spend the next 3 days being like, oh my God, did I offend someone, or do I look stupid, or is what I said going to be misconstrued in some way, and everybody else is doing it better, and then I go down in this rabbit hole. And so that part of it I think is really hard, and I think it is good to remember that at the end of the day, what is important is your work, the quality of your work, how you are to work with. Are you reliable? Are you prepared and on time? And do you do your homework ahead of time? I think it's important to remind myself that is still, at the end of the day, it is the most important. I don't know. I think those are some of the challenges now.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I saw this Facebook meme today. I think you and I are close to the same age. I won't reveal what it is.
But, you can. I'm 48. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so you're a little younger than me. Okay. But close. I turned 51 on Sunday. So
this past Sunday?
No, coming up. 16th.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. But I saw this thing on Facebook today that says, hey, Gen Xers, how many times a day do you start to write a social media post only to give up and think, I really don't give a shit that much?
Oh my God, it's totally true. Yes, it is not natural. It's so interesting. Like even my kids, my youngest, who is 7, does not have a phone. I'm trying to figure out how to do something on my phone, not even social media related, just how to do something. And she'll just kind of pick it up and do that. And I'm like, how do you know? Like, she speaks phone. I think the younger generations speak social media and phone in a way that, Gen X does not naturally. We acquired that language much later. It does not feel intuitive at all.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, though. I don't know if I told you this, but my youngest son's first word was Google, and I'm so ashamed about that.
Is that true?
It's absolutely true.
Oh, my God.
Because I've always had an Android phone, and it's like Siri, but instead of saying, hey, Siri, you say, hey, Google. So I was constantly yelling at my phone when I was driving, hey, Google, call Mom, or hey, Google, make a note. And so his first word, backseat of the car, in the car seat, I hear him say, Google. And I was like, oh no, his first word was Google.
Oh my God. But yeah, because like Google is like Oz or God. I mean, you're asking it to do everything. That is hilarious. No, wait, are you still an Android user?
Yep, still have the Android phone.
Have you ever worked on an iPhone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm using an Apple computer right now, and I have an iPad, so I'm familiar with the.
But they're
the
they're really different, aren't they? I mean, I have trouble on Androids, but
yeah,
I think
the apps are all the same. The way you navigate is different.
Yeah.
I mostly like the open-ended part of Google, although the trade-off is they're monitoring everything all the time. So I don't know what's better or worse. I can't really speak to that.
Yeah, I think probably what you're used to ends up feeling better.
Well, Lauren, I want to thank you for being on the show. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time. I really appreciate you being here. It's been a pleasure. Before we go, how can folks get a hold of you or hire you if they want to cast you in their project?
I think to piggyback on my social media, now I'm going to say you need to follow me on social media. I am recently back on Instagram, and I'm trying to be more active, and that's where I will post going forward what new job opportunities I have coming up, or if I'm allowed to post about them. The last one that I had was during the strike, and so I could not post about that. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's where you.
What's your handle on Instagram?
It's at Lauren Stamile, and
that's Stamile.
That is correct.
And what about if people want to hire you? Do you have representation or management?
Yes, I do. My manager is Vault Entertainment, and my agent is TalentWorks.
Fantastic. Once again, Lauren, thanks for being on the show, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
In these modern times, every business needs a website. When you need a website for your voice acting business, there's only one place to go. Like the name says, voiceactorwebsites.com. Their experience in this niche webmaster market gives them the ability to quickly and easily get you from concept to live online in a much shorter time. When you contact voiceactorwebsites.com, their team of experts and designers really get to know you and what your needs are. They work with you to highlight what you do. Then they create an easily navigable website for your potential clients to get the big picture of who you are and how your voice is the one for them. Plus, VoiceActorWebsites.com has other great resources, like their practice script library and other resources to help your voiceover career flourish. Don't try it yourself. Go with the pros. VoiceActorWebsites.com, where your VO website shouldn't be a pain in the you-know-what.
Thanks again to Lauren for being on the show. I've known her for a number of years, and it's not that I didn't ask, or I didn't ask. It's not that she was like dodging being on the podcast, but more or less I finally got the courage to ask because obviously we were both a little starstruck. It might be the biggest name star we've had on to date, at least as far as on camera. So I'm really glad Lauren was able to join us, and she had a really cool perspective on the industry, I think.
She was amazing. I mean, like for someone who's been in the industry as long as she has, like 3 decades, she was incredibly humble. And I think she had so much good advice for people trying to get in, like about being willing to pivot and just being a good, she didn't explicitly say this, but you got the sense that she was just a great artistic collaborator, right? I mean, she does a lot of supporting roles with working off of lead actors. And she just seems like a really like enthusiastic and just observant and attentive creative partner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and a great example of how to do it right too. She said her parents told her she had to go to college in order to pursue this full time, and I took that example. And not that my daughter was not going to go to college, but my daughter is going to acting school right now. She's a sophomore, and she actually met with Lauren, and Lauren gave her some advice, and I think that helped a lot to steer my daughter in the right direction. She has a good head on her shoulders anyway, but it certainly didn't hurt to have someone with Lauren's caliber to talk to her and say, hey, here's what you should do, and here's the right path. So
that's amazing. That. I mean, I hope she realizes what an unfair advantage she had.
she's getting there. Like when she first started applying to school, she didn't want to be considered, a Nepo baby, and she didn't want to take advantage of any of the things that she has. But now she's starting to realize, like, the fact that she already has 4 agents is huge. Like, none of her...
That's incredible. and I mean, it sounds like she, like you said, she might not appreciate all of this now, but as she gets older, be like, man, Dad really hooked it up.
Yeah. She's getting there. She told me a story about telling one of her friends about her agent, and her friend was like, you have an agent already? And she's like, yeah, I have 4. Why? And
oh, God. Yeah, you were setting a very false precedent there.
Yeah. And it doesn't, as you know, that doesn't guarantee any actual work, but it is It is definitely a leg up.
It's a milestone, you know? I mean, it's ideally something that everyone gets, and the first ones are always the hardest.
Yeah, and if you already have that at 19 years old, that's got to be a huge help.
It was a good 10 years ahead of me.
Well, she had it when she was 10 years old, too, not to make you feel bad.
Well, that's true. Well, Lauren, thanks again so much for being on the podcast. It was so lovely to have you. Coming up next, we have longtime friend of the podcast, Tom Deere, the VO strategist. So we're going to be talking about kind of doing a pulse reading on kind of the current state of the industry and what the potential future of it is. So stay tuned for that. That's it for this episode of the VO Meter.
Measuring your voiceover progress.
Have a great day, everybody. You'll hear us in the next one. Thanks for listening to this episode of the VO Meter. To follow along, visit us at www.vometer.com.
We'd also love to hear your comments or suggestions for the show. Or if you have a questionable gear purchase, tell us all about it on our Facebook page or on Twitter @the VO Meter.